Do you find it hard to explain to friends and family what you now do? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure out challenges on your own? We have created a community for ex-corporate people running their own business who want to live a life they love whilst giving back to their community. This is the Build, Live, Give show. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day. We get real with no corporate BS. And now your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to the Build, Live, Give podcast, episode number 8. Hi, I'm Paul Higgins, and today we've got Matt Hanham on the podcast. He's the founder of Visible, and he used to be an ex-colleague of mine at Coca-Cola, Amatil. And Matt had to leave corporate due to a personal health issue, and he talks about that through the podcast and how that really forced his hand to go into his own business. And he talks about some of the challenges of running his own business, and in particular, a separation with his business partner that happened recently. He also shows you how to grow your business and how you can use a creative agency and a digital agency, which Matt runs. And also he talks about two causes that he's really passionate about. One is around helping other agencies working with not-for-profits and also helping his son with allergies. So Matt gives tons of great advice. So what's been happening in the Build, Live, Give community, it continues to expand, and I really appreciate all those that have left 5-star reviews. If you love the show, please leave a review. The more people that listen, the greater that the whole community benefits. And if you love it, subscribe to it. We'd love to have you subscribe. And if you want to join our free Facebook group, you can go to buildlivegive.com and you can see how you can join our Facebook group there. But anyway, grab your pens and papers because Matt's got lots of great practical information and knowledge. And I'll now hand over to Matt.
Welcome, Matt Hanham, Director at Visible and Managing Director of Bluescape, to the Build, Live, Give podcast. So, Matt, we're going to hear a lot about your story, and I know I've been involved in some of your story as we go through the show today. But what I'd love you to do is just take us back and give us a little bit of background to your journey to get to today.
Great. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks very much for having me on the Build, Live, Give podcast, and I'm really excited to be here. So, you've asked the big question. Where did it all start, and what does my background look like? So, look, I guess it all started. My dirty little secret is that I was a trained accountant, and that's where I started life. I spent 5 or 6 years in insolvency accounting, basically restructuring and helping fixing businesses and shutting them down at times. And that was I learned a lot through that process, and I was across managing lots of different businesses, but it didn't quite fulfill me. And after that time, I moved across to a corporate space where obviously we worked together at Coca-Cola, and I had a great couple of years there in my early days in my career. But unfortunately, I fell quite ill during that period of time. I had chronic fatigue and got myself into a really, really poor physical condition. And I guess that was the catalyst that helped to make me make a leap forward into starting something of my own, which had always been something in the back of my head. So that's a really quick 60-second version of sort of what led me to start my own businesses, and I've had a few from there. So you've probably we've discussed that I've started a construction business first off, and learned a lot and failed a bit, and did some good things, and gradually worked my way through a few other businesses in IT and property development and investment to find myself currently running Visible. So that's the really quick version.
Great. And look, I know we're going to draw more in as the show goes through, but I think it just shows your adaptability. And I always remember when I was working with you, it was over in Perth, and no offence, my wife's from Perth, but I found it a little different to the Melbourne and Sydney crowd. But the thing that always sparked my attention was your ability to sort of think outside the square. And I think, that's an example of, 8 or 9 companies that you've formed and pivoted along the way. So we'll hear more about that. But just before we get to that, what about something that, your friends and family may know about you, but the Build, Live, Give listeners haven't had the opportunity to find out?
Okay. Well, look, something my family and friends know. Look, my wife was actually born on a little island out in the Pacific, sort of in between Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, in that little pocket of space there. It's a tiny little island, which only 1,200, I think, people live there now. It's this beautiful little secluded spot, and we try and get there every a year or two, if we can, to spend 3 or 4 weeks to just really unplug. The Wi-Fi is terrible, but the people are brilliant. The place is amazing, and it almost pauses your life, when you get there. And after about 2 days, you literally switch off from all the stress of, I guess, what the Western world provides for us, and it really is an amazing place. And we're hoping to build a home of our own to be able to travel in and out of there on a regular basis, because it's a magical place. So Build, Live, Give, the community wouldn't be across that. So that's a pretty amazing thing that I'm very blessed to be a part of.
Excellent. Hopefully you put that on Airbnb so the community get a chance to share it, Matt, when you're not there. Fantastic. And look, I know, as I said, we both said we worked together at Coca-Cola. And, was there anything holding you back from making that step from safety of corporate into your own business? If you can sort of dial back the clock and think about it, was there anything holding you back?
Oh, what wasn't holding me back, Paul? I mean, to be honest, like when you're a trained accountant, and you tend to start life off with a slightly conservative lean, especially when you've also helped, I guess, restructure and liquidate probably 100 to 120 businesses. I think I did in those few years when I was involved there. So there was a lot of negative. And it was and really just around risk and risk adverseness in that space. Also, just generally the community. I don't even think it wasn't that long ago, but people weren't quite as receptive to you jumping up and making these changes. And I feel like entrepreneurship has really sort of leapt forward a little bit in the last 5 years, and that's been really positive. So it's been more like, this is about 10 years ago we're talking, and I did struggle at the time just with perception and to take some real action.
Yeah, and look, I think 10 years ago, I probably would have been so busy I wouldn't even have noticed, and probably didn't do a great job in asking what you wanted to do. But yeah, it was, I know, certainly miles from my radar. And I remember when I left about 6 years ago, people just thought I was crazy. Like my whole family, all my friends, basically thought I was crazy. And only one friend actually had the gumption to actually tell me that. Everyone else said, "Oh, that sounds great," and everyone, behind the scenes was saying, "This guy's crazy." Whereas now, I catch up with my corporate friends, or my corporate friends call me and say, "Here you go, tell me a bit about what you've done, because you seem to be, having a great lifestyle. I sort of watch you on Facebook a little, and it seems to be great. And you know what? Corporate's getting harder and harder, and particularly in Australia. And we want a bit of what you want." So I think you're a pioneer 10 years ago, and you're right. I think it's getting easier for those that leave. And do you have many people approach you now? I know it's been 10 years, and talk to you about your journey?
Yeah, look, I find exactly the same thing. So I was, I guess, exposed to some small business, and my father was a builder and did own his own building company for a period of time when I was young, but had sold that and moved into a corporate space. And there was a lot of, not negative, but I think there's a lot of fear, and people, particularly those closest to you, are scared. Are scared for you, and they do try and hold you back a little bit. But you're right, that same group of people, that family, friends, and a lot of colleagues, are also now turning back to me saying, every time I talk to an accountant that I know, they're like, "How did you get out?" And it wasn't easy, but I know where they're at, because they get stuck and used to a lifestyle with a good salary, and once you get your family and other things going, and homes or investments, it's really hard to pivot As you mentioned before, the word pivot has been something that I've learned to embrace. And when I've got that sensation that I really need to do something serious and pivot, I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Great. And look, you sort of touched on a few of your key fears, and as you said, conservative upbringing. I know you'd seen with your dad in particular how difficult it is to run your own business. But what sort of help did you receive when you first left? Who did you turn to? What help did you get?
Yeah, so it was a bit of when I first decided, I really had been deciding that I was going to quit my corporate job for quite a period of time. And I mentioned that I got quite ill, and I'd even moved down to working part-time for a short time during that stage because I just wasn't capable of working, but no one could understand that. And then no one could understand that I was still struggling to work full-time. And just to put it into perspective, Paul, at times during working at Coke, I would drive to work, walk to my desk, and need about 45 minutes to recover to start trying to work. But I'd been trained to work hard. I continued to just try and work hard and just work through the problem. But I knew it wasn't the only solution, and health was one issue, but I needed to start to pivot and focus. So I think what I did, I went and I had a home at the time, and I refinanced and got myself the biggest line of credit possible, and decided to leave. And I made that decision, and then went to this island that I just spoke of, Niue, out in the Pacific, and spent a month there. It was a planned holiday, and I just made the decision that when I got back, I was going to start a business, but I had to force myself to leave and put myself, I guess, under the gun to start something. It was the only way it was going to happen.
Yeah, excellent. And look, and I think there's always the debate of do you do the side hustle, do you leave, etc. There's no right or wrong, but I think most people that I interview and a lot of people in the community and our listeners will all say there was never a perfect moment. I know I waited years before, and it just never came to me. So I ended up just jumping, and then the journey sort of takes fold. But I think for those that are listening, if I'm hearing from your voice, your advice, Matt, you just got to, yes, be considered, but take the leap, because the path is not linear.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer your question as well, I did receive some help. So I came back from this holiday, and I knew where I was going and what I wanted to do, but what business was I going to start? what was it? That it wasn't an accounting firm. So I wasn't interested in that. So I had to start something, and I did go to a mentor, who became a business partner in my first business. And at the time, I knew I needed to get someone with an outside perspective that wasn't sort of part of my family and friend network to assist me. And look, the communities like Build, Live, Give, they just weren't there at the time. It's amazing how these things have come on. And there was obviously people that would have maybe a group that would meet up and talk, but you couldn't find them, and they weren't available online. So getting a bit of help and just a bit of, I guess, validation around my decision and assistance in creating and starting something was really important. And I had an early mentor, which helped me once I got back to get going, because I came back from this holiday and it took me like another 3 or 4 weeks to even come up with a few ideas. I got a paralysis situation from it, and I knew I needed to start something, and I was able to sit down and just work through some issues with someone in that mentor type capacity that had started businesses before. And that was actually really important, I think, at the time.
Brilliant. Great. So if we sort of fast forward to today, you walk into a client meeting, or you walk into a networking event, how do you describe what you do? What would you say to somebody?
Well, I don't wear a suit anymore. But look, how I would describe what I do is we are a marketing agency, and that's the company that we're running. But what we do is we grow businesses. So we really try and get into the heart of what people are trying to achieve, and try and help them connect with their ideal client base and help them grow. Because a big part of it for me is really also helping people that have been through the same sort of process or a similar situation that I have, that wanting to take control of their life, and it's I'm sure a major part of the catalyst for change within your community too. People wanting to get in control of their life, live the lifestyle that they've always wanted, and further up the corporate ladder. As you've certainly got a lot further up that ladder than I did, you just lose so much of that lifestyle. The expectation, particularly of your time, it just diminishes, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to be able to spend time with my family when I had one, and I'm sort of proud to say that I've got that ability now to have some control.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And look, we hear that a lot from our guests and our listeners as well. And I think when we worked together at Coke, if you had asked me what I did, or if I had asked you, we would have probably described the job and who we worked for, but we never actually touched on the why. And I just love your passion. You came to life when you talked about what you do for your clients. And I think it's just such a great thing to be able to do that in your own business. Whereas, not all, but certainly a lot of corporates are still, shareholder value, quarterly reviews, quarterly results, very much about what's in it for the company, not what's in it for the consumer. And there's always exceptions, and some big companies are getting it right, but it's not many. So I think you raised some great points. As far as revenue in Visible at the moment, sort of how do you go about making revenue at the moment?
How do we go about it?
Yeah.
Even how do we grow it, or just what do we do for revenue?
What do you do? What's the key components that make up your revenue pie?
Okay. Yeah. So, effectively, we consult. We manage the marketing for a lot of small to medium enterprises. So we manage their Facebook pages from a content and advertising perspective. We work on Instagram, whatever platforms are suitable for the clients. But really, I think a lot of our industry does that. But what they don't do is really plan out and execute over time activities that are going to lead to grow the businesses. So I just think there's a bit of a disconnect between, hey, how many page likes have I got? And, what am I, I'm spending some money on advertising. We really try and hone in the ideal target audience for our clients and try and get them in front of those people to help grow their businesses sustainably.
Great. And how do you go about finding your ideal client?
They're usually on Facebook, to be honest. But no, look, it's a process that we run through a discovery phase with our clients. We try and really work out who they're looking to target, and I have found that most clients, new clients, come in and they've got an idea of who they want to work with, but they haven't necessarily really put the time into just what does my true ideal or best client look like. And it's just a refining process around developing content as a strategy, and also advertising amongst using platforms like Facebook, which are incredibly powerful to hone in and target different groups and test. Just to work out who they need to speak with. But I think most business owners understand it on a deep level, but have never really sat down and considered it and documented it properly on who they want to work with.
Yeah, look, I think it's a critical point, and we've certainly emphasised that in the Tracks End Club. It's a key thing, and I know in my journey we weren't great at that at the start and learnt the hard way. So I think that's really important. And I know I've followed your path, and we've been in contact quite a bit over the last couple of years. But just take me through, or take the listeners through, some of the key challenges that you've faced growing a business like Visible.
Yeah, look, we face challenges in every area, to be honest. We're constantly learning, and I think that the minute you stop and think that you might be able to sit back and put your heels up in 6 months is a little bit of a pipe dream. So, the challenges wise, we grew quickly to quite a large number of staff. We were close to 20-person team at one point, including a few interns, and we quickly worked out that wasn't necessarily the ideal way to manage our client base, and that we needed to sort of lean out that team, so to speak, and allow us to use a lot of contractors to have specialist activities. So what I mean by that is, we'd be taking on maybe some photography and videography and maybe some social media posting and other things all on, in-house with our team. But sometimes each individual person isn't the right one for the job. And we worked out that quite a bigger net of talent was a better approach to better service our clients. So that adjustment in staff was quite an interesting issue, but I've got them from top to bottom. 6 months ago, I had a business partner in this particular business, and we were facing. We really had a different vision around where it needed to go when we needed to manage an exit of my partner. It's pretty easy to say that in 10 seconds, but it's an awful lot different to live through it. So as I'm sure you've dealt with these types of things before, and I've seen situations where you're involved in acquiring businesses and otherwise, and it's tough. And there's always something that's new and a challenge. And I guess the key thing is you have to be working on these improvements or projects or challenges within the business, but continue to run and keep the business, thriving at the best possible level at the same time whilst you're pivoting. So that's what I think the biggest challenge is. But whether it's HR, whether it's a sales crisis because you haven't put emphasis into selling for a few months, whether there's a financial issue that you weren't aware of, there's a client matter. There's always something landing on your desk or your inbox these days.
Yeah, and totally agree. And there's nowhere to hide, is there? Like, you've been the director or the owner of the business, and having a team that 20 is still a lot of people. You wear that, and I so often I see businesses that do scale probably too fast, and then they come back and get that model of contractor or specialist. So I think that's a really insightful point. And I know the listeners that aren't there yet, I think, take note. And sometimes you've got to do a mistake yourself to really learn it. But on this one, please take Matt's fantastic advice. And any other advice that you've received that's really, sort of stuck in your mind, Matt, as you've gone through some of those challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that I guess I've faced is more around the personal growth. And certainly, I guess the quicker that you can stop and listen to your gut instinct decision, the better. And I've noticed that the longer I've left, situations, they're much harder they are to rectify. And, the gut instinct is, you might say it's an instinct. It's a collection of all your experiences and, everything you've dealt with to that point. So there's a lot of evidence that goes into how you're feeling. But I think we have a tendency to suppress things when they're not quite going the way we want them to. And just moving, to a quicker response rate on things like that, on when those issues arise, is something that's really benefited me, just by having that awareness of what's really going. Because I think it's tough, it's isolating to be out there on your own, and sometimes you don't really want to. You're happy to work hard, but you don't really want to look at the thing that's not quite working in your favour at that point in time.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. And, that's why the community is here to help people, so you can post in the community. And then, as I said, we've got a club where you can even get more support and accountability. So, look, I totally agree. And sort of, on a day-to-day basis, what's your sort of typical week look like?
Yeah, so my typical week now is I still operate on a fairly structured week. A fairly typical 9-to-5 style week. I just have a lot more freedom. So I'll train 3 to 4 times in the gym a week. I have 2 young children, a 5-year-old girl and a 2-year-old boy, and I'll often do a school drop-off once a week, and probably a daycare drop-off or pick-up, usually a couple of times during the week. But I guess what my week is quite flexible, and I lock in the important things. I lock in the team meetings. I lock in sort of client activities that need to happen, and I also lock in personal things. And to me, which was always the dream, is to just be able to mix all that through. Like the reason why I've pivoted, and we've talked about that before, it was I wanted to continue to work closer to my why, and that's why I genuinely love what I'm doing now. and I love working with businesses and helping them grow. And that mixed with my family life and working out and all the rest of it is just life and what I enjoy doing. So I've been on a constant quest to sort of enjoy all aspects of my life. And I don't necessarily believe in sort of work-life balance per se. I think it's more being more aligned to your mission and purpose that allows you to enjoy and have a happier life, because you're going to work, you're going to be at home. You might hate your job, but you might not pay attention to the family when you're home too, because you're stressed about your job. So for me, it all just mixes together, and I'm really blessed to be able to pick my week as it goes, week by week. I stick to certain schedules, and I sort of try and keep little routines in place. But at the end of the day, I really do have freedom.
Yeah, look, that's fantastic, and so many of our other interviewees have sort of said a similar thing, and I know for a lot of listeners out there and the ones that are thinking about the move to corporate, I think you just can't buy that. You can't buy what Matt, you just explained. It's very hard to put a dollar value to it, and I think it's really powerful. And unfortunately for you, you don't have like the old days where you'd have something planned with the family, and then a young person trying to go places too fast would whack a report request on your desk and say, I need it first thing tomorrow morning. You work late but for it, and then they'd never use it anyway. So not pointing fingers at anyone, but yeah, look, it's great. And so as far as, you've achieved a lot now, given this balance, often people then turn their energy to the give part. So that's, sort of the third phase, as we call it. Is there any cause or community that you're really passionate about that sparks your energy? And if so, who is it and why?
Yeah, well, look, there's a few things. I haven't probably put as much time into this space as I wanted to, and I've started to make the decision recently that I have to just carve this time out, rather than sort of putting it off, until later, until I have lots more time, which has kind of been my philosophy and approach. So last year we major sponsored an event that was run by a group called Hanham Creative, and basically, they actually run social media and marketing training for not-for-profits, and so they run these groups, probably not unlike what you do with your group, Paul, and they just try and help not-for-profits who are often very vulnerable, and a lot of them are very small organisations that just don't have the resources to try and push out their causes. So, yeah, we're really proud to get behind that and help them as they grow up their, I guess, profit for purpose. It is a business, but their reach and the way that they're going about things they're wanting to impact, I think, 1 million people this year via their programs, and I think they've got that reach based on all the different causes that they've helped. So that's quite an exciting thing to be involved in. But the other one that's quite a new one for me is actually something that relates a bit closer to home. So my 2-year-old son, William, has actually got some allergies, which I never quite knew how serious all this could be, and something that I'm really going to launch more into as I'm currently going through a learning process, I suppose, on it all is allergy and anaphylaxis, and we've got a serious problem here in Australia. At where we're growing at a rate well above what the rest of the world is doing, and no one really quite knows why. And a significant amount of kids now have allergies to many things, and it's becoming a problem in the schools, and obviously it's a problem for them as they grow up. So that's pretty close to home for me at the moment, and I plan on putting some effort into that over the next couple of years.
Brilliant, great, and all the best with that. Having 2 children myself, I just know how difficult that is. A simple party is no longer a simple party.
Yeah.
When you're looking to cater, and I know all the complications that it comes with it. So that's great. I really, listeners would love the fact you're doing both of those. So the next and the last section is really about take action. So it's around just getting some really great practical advice from you on a couple of key topics. So I'll just ask you a quick question, and you can fire away. So the first one is, what is your number one personal productivity tip?
Wow. So unfortunately or fortunately, it comes back to probably the most simple equation. And I've tried so many things to smash and really like sort of curate productivity and take it to a new level. But every time I manage to write a list, keep it simple and small, either the night before or the morning before I turn up to my office, I achieve it and I actually leave the place feeling good. So that's probably in the simplest form. When I walk away with that momentum at the end of the day, knowing that I've nailed the three, or particularly the one major thing I need to do, but usually a couple of minor points, that is the best. That is the best outcome for me. Because we write massive lists. We have so many ideas. We have just items everywhere that we just get in this paralysis situation, and we've never set ourselves a goal. If we set a goal for the day and achieve it, we feel good. So simple one, but that's probably my best tip.
Fantastic. And your mobile phone, we laughed the other day. I laughed at someone as, I'm more likely to leave my wallet at home than I am my phone, and the phone's becoming your wallet. But for you, what are a couple of key apps must have or must use apps on your mobile phone?
Yep. So my probably heaviest used apps, I use Evernote and Scannable into Evernote. So I scan everything through Scannable, which loads automatically through into Evernote, and I use those quite heavily for clipping and all sorts of other activities. Right. Obviously, the social media platforms are all find their way on my homepage. And the other big ones that get used is your typical ones being your mail, etc. But Downcast and Audible. So I do consume a lot of content on many different things, and often when I'm driving, or even in evenings or otherwise, I've got a pair of headphones in, and I'm listening to whether it be books or podcasts on many areas of business and history and whatever takes my fancy at the time. So they're probably some of the can't do without apps. LastPass is a password manager, which also basically controls my life. I never realized how much brain capacity I was using, trying to remember 180 passwords in my head. But that's a brilliant app too, and I use that as well, don't you, Paul?
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Yeah. So that's probably the big ones. I mean, I keep a pretty concise home screen, and then on my sort of page 2 and 3, I just have some folders, and I've really worked quite hard over the last couple of years to just keep culling anything that wasn't necessary and just stay focused.
Yeah, look, there's some great research saying 7 apps. So there's normally 7 apps that you use, 80% of the time, and they're normally on your home screen. So that's great. And just as a quick additional question, what time speed do you listen to with Downcast and Audible?
Yeah, look, it varies. If I'm just rolling through something that I've probably heard before or heard similar context, I might push that up to 1.5 or 2. I don't like to go too fast because I find myself, like I used to read a textbook, just skimming through and maybe not paying enough of attention to the context. And if I'm really considering, like, it's something that's on stoicism or something that I'm really trying to get deep into, that I guess theory, I do just keep it on a normal pace. I think I have a tendency to try and speed through these things at times, and I've just consciously tried to hold back and pay sort of close attention to the content rather than just like how much I'm consuming, which for me, that's just my brain sometimes is just way too full. So I struggle to take it all in.
Yeah. No, look, that's great. And what's one bit of advice you wish you had received when you first launched your business?
It's probably a piece of advice that you would have got anyway, but it's just that you're not open to listen to it. And I think that's really getting deep into goal setting and planning. And if you're not able to set goals and plan yourself, then find accountability partners or a group of people to work with, or a community like yours, Paul, and do that for yourself. Because when I truly plan things out and look at 12 months in front, then start to break things like on major goals, and then break them down into sort of quarterly targets, but also things you want to achieve in terms of projects, things happen. And when I don't, things just float. And it's the obvious, and we've all been trained that we should set goals and plan, but truly executing that is a whole nother equation, which I find that many of us in small business get just too caught up in the whirlwind to really give proper thought and execute our planning.
Excellent. Fantastic. And how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, well, they can check my company Visible out. We're on our website is visible.com.au, or we're Team Visible on Facebook. And you can hit me up there. You can catch me anywhere else if you Google my name, Matt Hanham, or just look me up on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you want. It's MATT HAN for Nelly, HAM for Matthew, and just check me out. And I would love to chat with anyone who's interested in growing their business or just wants to share a story. I love having a chat like this.
Yeah, brilliant. And look, I know our listeners will get a lot of value out of this, Matt. It's been fantastic to talk to you. I've followed your journey from, like you said, 10, 12 years ago now. And I really thank you for sharing your journey with the BLG listeners. And I wish you every success in the future.
Yep. Thanks very much, Paul. Look, it was really enjoyable to be on here. And I look forward to watching your community thrive and grow as it already has done in its short time. So, I'm really great to still connect with you, even though we sort of operated in the corporate environment together and sort of work together on this new journey. So, really excited to keep being part of the community.
Great. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you, Paul. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give show. If you found this show helpful, please share it with others so we can build businesses, live great lives, and give back to the community. If you would like to join the BLG community, go to our website, www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.